Scott, how the hell are you?
Hey Dan, good. I'm doing good. You?
Oh, not too bad. How are the Packers doing?
Well, last time I checked, they were winning. How the Titans doing?
Well, the last time I checked, they were winning. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Yeah,
Still got a half to go, unfortunately. So,
we do. So we got to
uh,
get this in before the second half starts. So I got to go quick here. But
yeah, you only got like 5 minutes.
all right. Cram session here. All right.
Yeah.
What do you make of this football season in general? You're from Wisconsin, born and raised, I presume.
Yep.
So you've kind of been familiar with the whole Green Bay scene all your life, right? So, I mean, football is a part of being a resident of Wisconsin.
Of course.
This is obviously a season unlike any that we've seen in our lifetime. So how do you think, the Packers have handled the season and how the NFL has handled it in general?
Well, obviously, you had those teams out there that had done things that they shouldn't have, and I have to say that outside of that, the NFL's handled it very well, and the Packers, they probably had a couple. I remember them having a couple positive tests, but I haven't heard anything bad about what they've been doing. So I thought they've been doing pretty good with what they're doing. No crowds. I mean, the only spectators they had in Green Bay were just pockets of first responders and frontliners. Whereas I think that the ones that had fans, even though it might not have been too much of a difference there, I don't know if really fans would have been a good thing to have, but at the same time, it would have disrupted the football season as well because where are your fans? You don't have your support.
Oh yeah, that's something that I've been bringing up a lot lately is this idea of home field advantage and what does it really mean?
Right.
As you know, I went to Green Bay for a football game last September. It was, and
6, 7 actually.
yeah, and it was. That place was packed. There were like 80,000 people there. It was the most incredible spectacle you could possibly witness.
Yep.
And then you watch it this year, and there's just nobody there. You can hear crickets in the stadium, and
Yeah.
so much of a team's home field advantage is built around their crowd. And
Yes.
we see that in Green Bay. We see that in Seattle. These teams that have these massive home field advantages with crowds are now not going to have that distinct advantage. And I just wonder whether it really matters at all what the seeding is.
Well, you did see
Obviously, you would prefer to have the 1 seed, right? You'd rather have the week off.
right.
But 2 through 7 in both conferences, I mean, it's a crapshoot, if you ask me. I mean, home field has meant less and less in recent years, but especially this year, I think you can just chuck it all out the window and just say 2 through 7, have fun.
You see that Cuomo is letting their Buffalo Bills have 6,000 in their stadium.
Yeah, and I know that we have a mutual friend who had said since August that this would be the year that the Bills would win the division and have their first home playoff game in 25 years. Would be the year that they wouldn't be allowed to have fans in the stadium for it. But I am
somebody
glad,
listen.
Well, I am glad that they have allowed for some of a crowd there. That's a nice gesture.
Yes.
And really, a lot of the stadiums have allowed fans. I think Nashville's allowed fans since October.
Yeah.
Some of them still haven't. Like Green Bay's only allowed a few hundred, and Chicago and New York are still empty. But
Yeah. I think Green Bay would have let fans in if they didn't have that surge in the fall.
Right. Yeah. Wisconsin was kind of ground zero for a little while, right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, that was kind of a decider. They were planning to allow fans in the stadiums, and Packers themselves decided not to do it because of the safety.
Right.
So it was nothing to do with government or anything like that. It was the Packers making the choice, and then now they're letting 1,000 or 2 first responders into like pods in the bleachers. So it's not 0.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, like for Chicago or New York City area, those teams, I wish they would have fans like that, but that's their call.
Yeah, well, the Giants make the playoffs after
That's the
tonight.
question. That
You know,
depends on whether the football
are
team
they?
loses.
Well, yeah. So we'll see what New Jersey and New York come up with for that. But yeah,
Yes.
that would be interesting. You'll have a 10-win team in the AFC not make it, and a 10-loss team in the NFC make it. It's the
Yes.
first time that's ever happened.
Quite interesting.
What else would you expect from the 2020 football season? Something
Upside
crazy
down.
would have to happen. Yeah.
Upside down.
How has COVID impacted you and your travels, your professional ambitions? All down the line.
I had been reserved most of the time with that stuff. Obviously, I didn't not travel. You saw that I had not gone to various places in neighboring states. I wanted to go to other states outside of the ones around Wisconsin, but it was like it wasn't COVID that was causing the problems. It was other medical problems, which I'd rather not dive into. You've seen a little bit in the past about what was going on. It's like totally different situation. It was hampering how well I drove, and it's like if something like that really hurt really bad, I probably could have crashed.
Hmm.
So it was kind of one of those things where physical health was kind of getting in the way, and I unfortunately decided not to go up and visit family for Christmas. So it was a Christmas spent alone. Didn't mind. Did feel lonely, obviously, but I trucked through it. Reason for that, obviously, was because they were a hot zone and pretty much everybody was frontline. And so,
Everyone in your family.
yeah.
Okay.
And there was pretty much a mutual respect on this.
Yeah, I mean that you got to do what you got to do, and everyone that I know has been very flexible and very understanding
Mm-hmm.
about accommodations and switching up things as necessary. I mean, the first few times that I went to see my parents in May, because I went for about I'd say 6 or 7 weeks without seeing them.
Yep.
First few times I saw them, I just sat outside on the back porch, and until we were kind of comfortable with, mingling a little bit inside. But it was a little weird at first when we first started to see each other again, and since this all has started, I have not really seen my extended family members indoors.
No.
So it's it's an adjustment, but it's one of those things that I've gotten used to. I think you're used to a routine, right? You're used to seeing certain people in certain places in certain settings,
Right.
and then something like this happens, and then everything just gets blown to bits, and then you just find new ways to make it work, and then before you know it, you're used to some other way of doing things that you maybe never would have thought about.
Yeah, and I look online and see that a lot of people have just basically said, "Screw this! I'm just going to go and drive all over the place," and haven't heard. I don't know if they've actually wanted to publicly say anything like that, but that's their choice. And as far as professionally, obviously, I've been working at home. You can see my workstation behind me, but a little blurred.
Okay.
But that's still happening for a while. I'd be doing it if I had the opportunity. I'd explore around, see what stuff is out there. I mean, software engineering is kind of still up there as far as what's marketing is concerned. As far as job volatility is concerned, it's not really being impacted whatsoever. One of those easy ones that you could do work from home on if I didn't have to do hardware work. So that's probably going to have to take me back into the office at some point. I just have to accept that. They were planning on doing that last July, for example, but changed their mind once everything started going south.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Once there was the next surge in the Midwest, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
do you think if you were physically healthy, you would have done more traveling? I mean, granted, there's all the COVID stuff around, but you mentioned that physical health was a drawback for you this year. Do you think that if you had been 100%, you might have gotten out significantly more?
Probably one trip, at least. I would have definitely made it over to the East Coast because that was targeted because it was less of a hotspot at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of like I was going to go where not many cases were going, and turned out that Michigan was kind of the only candidate left, and I kind of wanted to stay close either way. At any rate, it was kind of an experience going up there, and at least I got all the interstates.
Yeah, you and I both had the same game plan, basically. We both looked at the map and we said, well, gee, Michigan's not bad right now. So, that sounds nice.
And I hope to do something during my winter shutdown, too, but it's like, all I could do was day trips. So, yeah. I was driving around Iowa and Illinois. I did get to see the Klein Avenue Bridge, and I was not impressed.
Is it open now, or what's the
deal
with that?
It's got one span of 2 lanes.
It's a 2-lane bridge, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's bridging between two 4-lane approaches.
Yeah, so so for people who don't know, Klein Avenue is actually a freeway grade highway running through East Chicago, and where it crosses one of those major industrial canals was a high level bridge that has a saga-like story to itself, but basically now they've replaced it with what you're describing. And give us your grade on the new bridge, because the old bridge was, what, a 6-lane bridge or something like that, and then they knocked it down because it was about to collapse, and now they've built this one, which is apparently a toll bridge, too. Is that right?
It is a toll bridge built by a private company.
Yeah.
INDOT would not even commit to it. So it's like the only way that they were going to get it in there it was through a private entity. So I have to say that it's a C-.
Really?
Really bordering on C- because it's like the aesthetics and like that. It's a standard. It's a standard arch bridge, and all it has really is. It looks like you knocked one of your 2 front teeth out.
Ooh.
Yeah, with the other carriageway gone.
Huh, okay.
And it's just that obvious. They left the stubs in for the approaches and everything, so It's like, maybe they're judging average daily traffic and seeing if people are going to go with it, but they're charging high amounts of values for that. Not as high as the Skyway, but it's enough to deter people.
Really? Jeez.
Yeah. And there is a nice shunpike around it.
Well, I mean, that's an easy enough bridge to shunpike, right? Via local streets. But did they build the 2-lane new bridge with a provision to add a second span or add more lanes to it?
No idea.
Because I would assume that anything that would be undertaken in the future would be done by the private concession. But
I would think that if there was more traffic, because all there is industry and a casino.
Right, yeah.
And so if there was a lot of flock to the casino that chose to use the bridge, if there was enough, they'd probably put the other one in, and that probably wouldn't happen in their lifetimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I mean that'd be pretty hard to justify. But yeah, I'm next time I'm out that way, I'm gonna have to do an ultimate toll road video because I know how much everybody loves it when I drive toll roads. You can drive a loop from Klein Avenue and then hit the West Point barrier on the Indiana Toll Road, and then hit the barrier on the Skyway.
Yeah,
and like lose your paycheck.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right, like the Skyway's up to like $6. The Indiana Toll Road is $3 or something like that. Yeah, so.
Mm-hmm. And now the Illinois tollway, the long roads, they're all electronic.
Was the cashless thing a COVID thing, or were they going to do that anyway?
It's an indication to me by the way they're signing things that they might be just jump started on it. But I don't have any proof as far as articles or anything like that. They're not sharing anything as far as what they're doing.
Okay.
So the assumption right now is temporary. But the way that they're replacing all signs and just marking off all the cash lanes and saying authorized vehicles only, I think they plan on tearing out the cash lane soon.
Well, yeah, aren't they widening the tri-state anyway?
Yes, in the middle.
Okay, yeah. So
Mm.
I would think that the cash plazas would go uh, just as part of that. But my favorite in Illinois tollway story, and I'll be glad when everything is all electronic the next time I'm out there, is I was coming back from Green Bay in September, and I rented a car out of O'Hare, and
Right.
we immediately drove north into Wisconsin. So I was like, well, I ain't gonna need a toll pass for Wisconsin, right?
Yes, you will.
Yeah. So we come back and we take 94, and then we jump on 294 to take the tollway down to O'Hare to get back to the airport. And I get off. I forget what exit it is, but I took
191.
whichever one is most direct to get you to the rental car center from the north, whichever one that is. But apparently, because again, I didn't have a tag.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't go through the tag lane or whatever. And then
Right.
I thought there was a full service lane. Well, of course there wasn't. It was change only,
Coins.
and the toll there is $2 too. So you got to
Yeah,
have
so you have
$2
bad
in
coins.
change. So I basically reached into my wallet and found all the coins that I had, and I was like, all right, this looks like $2, and then just threw it in the basket. I don't know if it was enough or what, but they got
Well,
something.
you weren't getting change back, that was for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I left there with no change, but I made sure I gave them my little donation before I left the highway.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I took drives around there as well, and 355 down by Joliet, they've already ripped out all the cash boxes, all the coin boxes. Several of the ramp tolls that are on the northern tollways are pretty much a lot of them accept credit cards, so you didn't touch them yet. Whether they're keeping them or not, that's the question. But the mainline tolls, they've closed down all the cash stations, even for credit cards or anything like that, and said, "I pass or pay online."
yeah, I guess it was your pictures I was looking at, and they have the banner that says "Pay Online," right?
Yep.
And of course, every state seems to be doing it differently. There's pay online, there's tolls by mail, there's toll by plate, there's bill by mail. So there doesn't seem to be any real consistency between states or agencies as far as how they're signing that kind of stuff. I wonder if that's going to be something that comes up in the future, as far as creating a national standard for electronic tolling, vernacular.
Well, the thing about Illinois is they do take videos of you, but they expect you to follow up.
Right, they're not. So the pay online thing is interesting because it's implying that it's on you to be proactive and set up an account and do your own thing, right? They're not going to bill you in the mail, right?
Correct. Well, if they did, it would be like a $3 charge and like that, and that seems to be temporary too before they go straight to violation.
Oh, okay. I see. We are talking with Scott Onson. He is an administrator of the AARoads Forum. Always very active in the hobby. It's good to have him with us. Let's just assume for a second that none of us watching this right now have ever heard of the AARoads Forum. How would you describe it?
A subset of AARoads. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. That's it. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. Yeah.
Well, you kind of want to look at it from a perspective of what is AARoads.
Well, we can start wherever you want,
So that's where I'm going to start.
All right.
Way back when, I don't know exact year, I didn't look it up, but it was before I even went online on a regular basis, which is way back in 2005, that I found out that this site existed amongst all the other ones that I had found. I mean, I started seeing all this stuff back in 2005. That was well after the first road meet that happened, and Jeff and Steve and Anderson and Alps all had their sites up as well, including Alex and Andy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where AA pretty much came from. If anybody wants to correct me, let me know.
That's my understanding of it too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the two that start now. I mean, but that's expanded since, and many people have had their hands in contributing. I mean, you look at it. I mean, it's all the freeway guides that are in there with pictures. The blogs that they have. They have several people that are guest bloggers, kind of like how Doug and Adam have Equivalent Nation. Mm-hmm. They also have a sign gallery of antique signs, and that's most of that has been one particular person that I won't name too much, but his name reminds me of a Chicago guy.
Okay, all right.
And then the forum was something that was started probably most recent, and it kind of came in when the Usenet was starting to die down. But even though MTR, Miscellaneous Transport Roads, Transport Road, was kind of the open forum that we had all this time, and then that was pretty much kind of, even though it's kind of informative at times, you kind of got a lot of trolls on there. If anybody hasn't heard about Carl Rogers, that's a road geek, don't watch his videos.
Okay.
Just hope that he gets run over. Never mind.
Oh. I'm going to make a note.
But he still, to this day, graces his presence to MTR, which is the shorthand, obviously, for Mistransport Road.
Yeah.
And nowadays, you only see it I've only seen Usenet groups on Google Groups nowadays, but AARoads Forum was kind of brought in as kind of a little bit cleaner version, so that we don't have all the political trash that comes in, because the Usenet is unmoderated. And that kind of brought a lot of the community around together, and obviously not everybody joined. That's their choice. We've had people come in and leave. That's their choice. But basically, we have subboards for various regions like the Great Lakes, Central States, the South, the Northeast, everybody's favorite, the Mid-Atlantic, and the West, and then a board or two for international, and you're going to have one reserved for Canada, and then some off-topic ones like travel, general, mass transit. People like to talk about transit all the time, and then everything that just falls out of there, just kind of like, we got an off-topic board for that. And basically, it's like an open forum, pretty much all of that. We do have policies that we have people follow. For instance, we refrain from politics unless it's pertaining to roads. We don't want too many people doing trolling like that, but it is quite the stories. I'll let it be up to the people in the chat to kind of give an idea to the history of what's going on. But there has been quite a few memes that I'm sure came out of that, like the Great Allen.
Yeah, I think I've seen a few of them over the years. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how did you get involved with the forum, and how did you get? I am assuming you joined at some point, and now here you are as an admin. So how does that journey take place?
Well, to be specific, the webmasters weren't the ones that started the forum. It was a guy by the username of Voyager, who's the younger kid, and he kind of ran it alongside and tried to run things his own way. And when people started pushing back, as far as I can remember, he kind of took the forum and went away with it and just deleted everything and tried to make his own, and basically it became a plagiarism. So they kind of got that shut down, and we managed to recover the data and bring it back. Obviously banned him. His official name is now Veacher, and his avatar is now Neelix.
Okay.
From the Star Trek Voyager days. But basically, he basically tried to run it, and he ran it into the ground in his first attempt. But we came back, Alex asked a couple of us to help him out with trying to get it back, and we managed to get it back up and running. And we have a couple admins that regularly do things as well, such as making sure that things are technical working. Alex and Rick Massfan, and then others are kind of like the I don't want to use babysitter, but it seems like that. And then we have a couple global mods and a bunch of regional mods that mind all the boards. But mostly it's kind of like advice. We do have our squabbles. I don't think that I'm going to go through I don't want to go through most of the squabbles, despite what people might want to do.
Oh, come on. That's the best part. Tell us everything. Empty your closets, man. You know? But, so the structure of the forum was set up that way, I'm guessing. Was there any specific reason for that, or did it just kind of happen that way and you guys just ran with it?
Well, we've had places where it wasn't as broken up like that in the first place, obviously, because there was many posts. But it's broken up as we go along. I mean, a lot of things on the off-topic world. I mean, we just had the off-topic board at first. Mm-hmm. And then trains came, the mass transit kind of came out of that, as well as the bridges, mm-hmm. as well as the general travel, and city planning was one. The urban planning board came out of that too. I mean, there was so much stuff about planning that was populating the off-topic that kind of, it was enough to, if you have enough to break it into its own subject, you break it out. Mm. The general highway talk was kind of like broken out, and they have a couple subboards for the signs and for, I forget what the other one is. 1 second.
Yeah, because there's quite a lot of them, right?
Yeah, so signs and traffic control and illustrations. And then you got the big one. Then you got the fun ones. Fictional highways.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. For things like Fritz Owl liking it. Fritz Owl's favorite.
Yeah.
Because of how he likes to make interstates where you don't need them, like the UP of Michigan.
I mean, US 2 should be I-98. Why not?
Okay, yeah.
Sure. Why not? That sounds like a blog, by the way. Somebody should come up with that. Use it as a blog. Sure, why not?
That's up to you guys, and you can probably argue that for Vermont as well.
Well, somebody could probably, yeah. But going back, as Derrick Henry runs down the sideline and runs more people over, what would you say are your favorite aspects of the forum? And we'll start with that. What would you say are the things that you like the most about the forum and that you've enjoyed see develop over the years the most?
I thought the collaboration and the bonding between people. There's groups, obviously, that talk together and like that. You obviously know the chat came up somewhere, some midway. You've been in there yourself. So we get. Yeah. And I think that's kind of one of those there that's one way to keep in touch.
Oh yeah, I don't often go in there, but it is one of those things that is I've found to be nice to have. Because everybody on Facebook also has their little chat rooms and all that, group chats and whatnot. But it's nice to have the AARoads chat, which incorporates everybody.
Right, not everybody's on Facebook.
That's right. Yeah, some people are on Parler, but anyway, anyway, I'm just saying. So on the topic of forum development and all that, what have you detested the most about it? Like, does it wear on you at some point just to be in that environment constantly? Because I gotta tell you, like, until I joined the AARoads Forum, I really didn't have any experience with forums in general. Like, it was just this foreign thing to me. Like, when I was in college, most of my
Mhm.
friends were on forums, like, of some sort. Like, I mean, you name it, there was a forum for it, even when I was in
Mhm.
college. But, people were on them all the time, and I always stayed away from them. And, the AARoads thing is it introduced a new idea to me
Mhm.
about staying in touch with people, and I wonder if that kind of environment is something that um, tends to grind on you after a while. Maybe
It has a little bit.
how would you describe that?
Um, as much as I say no, that you would expect people to follow the guidelines, for example, not everybody does. And at the same time, I don't want to discriminate, but the younger generation that's on there, the really younger generation on there, some of them just probably don't know how to talk online yet.
Some of them just don't know how to talk.
That too.
Yeah.
And then the people that go on tirades. It's like
Yeah.
you can either just go into a nasty argument with them forever, like I know some people do, just to keep them going, or you just pass the popcorn. Sometimes I'd rather do the latter.
Yeah.
Just watch.
Yeah. Well, that I like to sit in the recliner and just watch things unfold too. Sometimes that's not a bad position to be in either.
Right. But I
Yeah.
mean, there's times when you have to step in,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the roles that admins and mods always team. Since no matter what form you're in, admins and mods have the same roles that kind of like what a job supervisor has. You're the ones that stand out as the front line in the first line of defense against things that happen. And somebody's not doing their job at your under your direct report, you got to do something about it. You got to talk to them, do whatever, even if it comes down to the fire.
Mm.
Um, in the world of forums, you got people that will just go on a tirade and not care about anything like that, and just start trolling or yelling and bashing people, or even getting up to the point where they're going to be harassing staff members or doing whatever and saying they can do whatever the heck they want.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you throw down the banhammer.
Yeah.
And they've done it once, more than once. I'm sure I'll do it again. It's not always the best thing in the world to do, but it's like
Yeah.
you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Well,
And
I have a little bit of experience in that as an admin on Facebook groups, and yeah, it's really fun when you mute people and then they like message you in
Mhm.
private and call you, I don't know, dipshit
Right.
or whatever, like whatever, like it's a fun world out there on the social media front, but I don't know, it's just something that is out there, and you just deal with it the best you can, and that's really all you can do.
Right. And I mean, there's always going to be those situations, and it's tread lightly type of thing.
Yeah.
But still,
Well,
be
especially now, when people can just screenshot things and they can,
oh yeah,
they can alter tweets and stuff like that. I mean, you really gotta, you either gotta have the thickest skin imaginable, or you just gotta really watch what you do, because people all around you are gonna come for your ass if you do or say one thing that they don't like, and it just, I feel like it's gotten a lot more combative, especially recently.
mm-hmm.
Maybe you kind of have picked up on that as well. Not just like in forum-based discussions, but also on like other social media platforms. But
Facebook, Twitter.
oh yeah, right. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like you've seen it, right? Like it's just gotten a lot more testy, and I hope that kind of behavior doesn't become prevalent in the forum, because I think it's still a great place to hang out and chat amongst ourselves. But that is one thing that concerns me about the immediate and long term future of it.
Yes, and we just the one thing that we didn't want was another MTR.
Right. So take me back to the MTR Usernet stuff. Like, I know you said that Usernet was not moderated, and that was a big issue with it. Was MTR similarly set up?
It was totally random. It's one board.
Okay.
And then people posted whatever. A lot of people heard it was the source. It was one of the source. It was the first source to go for learning about road meets.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been trumped by the Facebook or AARoads or whatever you got there. I mean, Facebook and AARoads have been the things that I've seen stand out as the most obvious places to see events come up for that. And I usually, when I host it after road meet, I'll post both. Because there are people that, like I said before, don't want to be on Facebook, and others either don't want to be or haven't heard about AARoads Forum.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like we got a board for the road enthusiast meetings, or road meets as the short name. And I posted, many other people have posted. And you catch pretty much the wider audience by doing both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was the thing, is we could sort things out and not have all the smut, if you call it that.
Yeah. Well, I definitely got the feeling from people I've talked to in the hobby who have been in it for many, many years that the MTR days were like the Wild West.
Yes.
And, AARoads is a very well-behaved period of time compared to the good old days, as they describe it. So I am glad to see things evolve in a positive direction as far as that's concerned. I mean, I've only ever heard about MTR through other people and other conversations, so I never actually was involved with it. That was way before my time. But my God, I can't imagine what I would do if I had to be stuck in the middle of that, based on the sound of it. But I'm glad that some of you persevered through it and found a better way to do it. So bravo to you.
Yeah.
You're a Wisconsin native, as I said at the top. You've been around Wisconsin roads your whole life, so I would imagine that you can pretty much maybe not necessarily recite everything from beginning to end, but you have a pretty good grasp on the Badger State, and I'd like you to take us on a little bit of a journey across Wisconsin and take us to some of your favorite locations in the state as far as roads are concerned, because I think I get the feeling that like the urban centers are up on the list, but I'm sure there's also some other stuff that you've seen over the years that kind of goes under the radar and deserves to be discussed as well. And while you answer that question, I'll be right back, but go ahead and give your answer.
Yeah. So, as I talk to a picture, the realization about what's going on outside the cities. I mean, the cities are nice, and you got all those massive interchanges in Milwaukee, the Zoo, the Marquette, the Mitchell. Mitchell doesn't stand out because it's a T. But it also doesn't stand out because it's underground mostly. It's got tunnels instead of bridges.
Well, that's why I like the Mitchell, yeah.
Yeah, it's underground. Yeah. On the Madison front, the Beltline was slowly built up a little bit and kind of had, when you look at it, before it started getting its upgrades, it had a lot of cross driveways that go to on-ramps. They pretty much eliminated all of those guys. Unfortunately.
So they were like at grade, like driveway access and business access kind of things? Is that
on the on-ramps? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
At least at a couple of interchanges, but they've closed them off or cleaned them up lately, and pretty much it's all isolated freeway. They even had a railroad crossing that one back in the day.
Oh, really?
Before, yeah, but there's too much traffic right now, and that railroad basically was exempt as it is, and they just tore the tracks out.
Okay.
It was between Fish Hatchery and Todd, in south of the arena. But then you get up to like La Crosse, for example, where it's a little bit more hilly, the Driftless area, between La Crosse and Dubuque, and somewhat up towards the Twin Cities as well, and that's all hilly area. And compared to, say, Milwaukee or Madison, they got their hills too, but it's not as elaborate. I mean, they just got networks of streams and rivers that just where the glaciation mist. You have roads following the rivers, and you see bluffs all over the place. And La Crosse is kind of settled into the bottom of the by the floodplain and by the Mississippi. Same with Prairie du Chien, and they got their river crossings there. Eau Claire is more northwest, and it has quite a bit of hilly area. I gotta say, there's a couple quirks about Eau Claire because it's one of those first ones to have. It was the first city area to have a spooey.
Oh, really?
When they relocated 53, they put a spooey at 53 and 12. And the third one is obviously our Madison area. But they didn't come until just recently with the Broad Road upgrade that's southwest of town there. But back to Eau Claire. When Wisconsin started getting their flashing yellow arrows, there were instances, and this was the first one that I've seen, where flashing yellow arrows were being put at double left-hand turns. I thought that was a little crazy, but I think they also turned the flashing yellow arrows off during busy times.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of having flashing yellow with like a 2-lane turn at an intersection. That's
a little dangerous.
That sounds a little dicey, right?
Yeah. It's a little crazy there.
Well, every state kind of has their own quirks as far as that goes. You know, each state kind of likes to throw a little slider into the mix every once in a while.
Right. But the trombones. At the traffic lights.
So what are those?
So Wisconsin in the past used to put just pole signals at at 3 of the corners, and then the back right would always be over the top that have a horizontal mounted on a trombone.
Really?
So you've seen them around Jersey, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Right.
The same thing, and that was their standard.
That's what you're talking about. Okay.
Yep, and that was their standard, is to mount them on those horizontally. They've only started going vertically recently.
Okay.
But that was their trait, was to put those in that format, and that kind of made them unique. And unfortunately, those are kind of becoming a dying breed, especially for multi-lanes. They're starting to turn over to monotubes, and you're getting as many signal headsets as Illinois does. I'll give you that story in a few. And then you go all the way up north to Superior, which is kind of like what's left over of Dubuque of Duluth, unfortunately. You talk about them being called the Twin Ports. I look at Superior as kind of like a Duluth is the main city there, where Superior kind of becomes a suburb of Duluth. Mm-hmm. But they call it the Twin Ports because of being on a state line, and they both have their major industries of their own, of their uniqueness and such. Mm-hmm. And 2 bridges cross between them. One carries an interstate that belongs to Minnesota, 535, and the other one carries US 2. Go down to north, you go across 2. Your junction at 13, which is kind of a unique highway, it goes east, but it's signed to south. And then it kind of turns up north, but it's still signed to south. And then it goes around the Indian Head tip. And then finally starts going south. So it's like you think you're going the wrong way for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it goes through Bayfield and Washburn. Those are kind of like very good touristy areas because they're close proximity to the only National Park Service area of Wisconsin. Actually, there's two. I correct myself on that one because they got the St. Croix River on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
But the Apostle Islands was what I was talking about, a national lakeshore. Don't know if they're going to treat them like Indiana Dunes and turn them into a national park someday, but remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you go further east, you run into the UP of Michigan, that area. Kind of the area that they call the North Woods. Very rural. So pretty much no freeways in that area. Up north of Wausau, practically. At the time that I was very young in high school, there was no freeways up north of 13 miles of Wausau, Merrill. They've extended it as a 4-lane highway up to Highway 8, though. That's 51. But it's a mix of at-grade and freeway around up to Tomahawk. And then you got Rhinelander, Minocqua, Eagle River. Those are very touristy areas in the summer. A lot of people have a lot of second homes, especially those from South Wisconsin. I mean, Illinois. But it's basically a lot of people flock north.
Yeah.
And it's a very popular area. Not to say that it's not a popular area in the winter. That's snowmobile country up there.
Yeah.
And back when I was a young kid, my parents owned snowmobiles. Excuse me.
You probably owned a snowblower, too.
Of course we did, later on.
Yeah.
I own a snowblower.
There you go.
Uh-huh. But, I mean, it's like they started... That was back when snowmobiles were kind of like, okay, you can do whatever. And people didn't worry about them ripping up the private lands. Now you got the trails.
Yeah.
And it's all regulated, and if there's not enough snow, they're going to say, closed. The old allowed cloud, as one person puts it. Go down towards the south, you got Wausau. Wausau's not that... their big thing is that they got the ski area there. Granite Peak on Rib Mountain. Otherwise, they're kind of like one of those smaller big cities that's a crossroads between two roads that bridge clearing Green Bay or Minneapolis if you want to go further, as well as Madison and the rest of the world in the north. I grew up in Rhinelander and eventually spent some time down in Wausau working before I attended first Stevens Point for 5 years. I felt that was a big failure for obvious reasons. And I had a couple do-overs as far as my career was concerned, and my latest do-over brought me to Blackville here.
Yeah, and you're in the software engineering business nowadays. How does one get into that?
Well,
because it seems to me like you got into it in a bit of a roundabout way, but
it doesn't have the same engineering principles as far as the PE, FE exams and like that that your fields have, mechanical, civil, architectural. It's kind of like you apply engineering principles to computer science principles in one group, and it has become a big engineering field and kind of an offshoot of electrical type of thing. And that's the way I look at it. Other people might look at it another way. It's like an offshoot of computer science. I really don't think so, because you're applying. Computer science obviously can get you into these fields as well, but the purpose between the software engineering program that my school had was to expose you to more hardware aspects, especially like electrical hardware.
Yeah.
I mean, they had tried other programs that expose you to some industrial or mechanical engineering as well. one of them didn't go through, and that the mechanical one, unfortunately, was the one. Wish they kept that because there's a lot of things that software engineers can do in controls, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty of my job because of IP reasons. So.
Oh, you don't want to spoil all the company secrets?
No, of course not.
Oh, okay. You don't want to just give. I mean, I bet the Chinese government is watching right now. You know, you could just hand it over to them if you want.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
They definitely will be. But I mean, it's a fun field. It's not any easier. I mean, they look at things like that. They have procedures, processes. I don't know if I'll be honest. I've known a lot of people that were not software engineers but have heard of the agile process. Have you?
One more time, ask that again.
Agile process.
I have no idea what that is.
Kind of like
see, my problem is that I'm a civil engineer. I deal with things like bridges. I have no idea about any of that computer stuff. In fact, the one when I was in college, I had to take it was a required elective.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like computer. I forget what the heck it was called, but it was like a
CS 101.
It was kind of like that. I'm trying to remember what the name of the class was. It was like, what do you call it? Like an introduction to computer science. It was something like that. And even at that incredibly remedial level, I was like, what? There's just some stuff that, and we all have these fields, right? We all have these subjects that we just look at and we're like, I got nothing. Like, I have no idea what's going on here.
I'll put agile in plain English.
You can try, yeah.
So, take your bridge, the Mario Cuomo Bridge.
All right, go for it.
It started out as the Tappan Zee Bridge, right? And then you had to build a larger bridge to the north of it, and then demolish the old one.
Yeah, right.
And right now it has 8 lanes on each side. I can't remember.
Well, yeah, it's got 8 lanes. Well, it's got 8 lanes total for simplicity.
8 lanes total, and
yep.
Eventually, you're going to need to improve on that.
Yeah, you would think so.
Not going to take so fast. I mean, the idea behind Agile is continuous improvement, always building upon.
Oh, okay.
Just in the soft.
Yeah.
And it's more prevalent. I didn't expect you to know what it was. Like you said, you're a civil engineer. You kind of look at it from a large scale point of view, and you're building this bridge.
Yeah.
Or you're tearing down Sheridan Expressway, for example.
or whatever. Yeah. We're not really dealing too much with computers, except when we have to call the state office help desk in Albany because our computers don't work. But that's really about the extent of our computer-based knowledge. But I mean they're just two different fields in general.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, mechanical engineers do a lot of computer work depending on what you do. I mean, CAD programs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's computers involved, but you're more of a user. I could say I'm more of a user in some more sorts because I don't program the computers themselves. I actually program little boxes.
Yeah.
Embedded systems is what they call them, like an Arduino.
So for someone who's not familiar with your line of work, how would you describe your day-to-day, responsibilities, if I want to call it that, or your day-to-day job in general? Because you obviously have your little setup behind you. Seems like the kind of job that would be pretty adaptable to a work-from-home kind of scenario. Or at least that's the way that it seems to me, right?
Right.
So, like, kind of.
There's a lot of hardware involved, though.
Yeah.
So we're testing on hardware that's not part of a desktop computer. And a lot of that involves working with vehicle. Basically, we're working in automotive stuff,
Oh, all
and
right.
there's computers. There's computers in your automobile, for example.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Maybe not your Honda.
Well, but yeah, like you don't think of there being computers in your car, but yeah, you are right.
Yeah, the engine
Yep.
has one
Yep.
nowadays. The
Well,
engine
nowadays,
control.
yeah, nowadays pretty much everything is becoming automated. So yeah.
So those are the types of things that I work with on a daily basis.
Okay.
And it's basically designing new stuff, debugging if necessary, old stuff, and you pretty much debug all the time as we go along because we're kind of forced to.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only way you're going to be able to get it to work is to test it.
Right.
And it's not where it still has safety implications involved because if something happens and you end up crushing somebody by running them over or shutting an automatic trunk on somebody, that's going to cost money.
Right.
So there is safety considerations to be brought into this. Whereas in the civil engineering field, you deal with the potential of structural integrity of your bridge, for example.
Yeah.
You don't exactly want to be on the Tappan Zee Bridge when it falls.
Well, that's preferable that you're not.
Yeah.
That is true.
But, I mean, if you end up being on there, you kind of want to design it as a strong bridge.
That's right.
That's the intent. So that it doesn't drop when you cross over it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I know people are afraid to cross the Bay Bridge down in Chesapeake, for example.
Yeah.
Or even the Sunshine Skyway Bridge down in Tampa area.
No, the old one.
No, the new one too.
Well, I haven't heard anything about the new one, but certainly the old one freaked people out, and then they
Yeah.
were given good reason to freak out about it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I wasn't exactly the most comfortable driving over the old Tappan Zee myself.
Well, I think you share that sentiment with a lot of people. So that was just that was the number one priority statewide as far as bridges that needed replacement.
Right.
And if you ever got a good look at the underside of that bridge, you would see why.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the stuff that the drivers never saw. The stuff that was out of view that was what was really scary about it. But we got it out of the way, and now we can worry about something else that's about to fall on somebody's head. So
don't even mention it.
I won't. I got my list though, but I'm not going to mention what's in the list. But
of course.
What's your favorite place in Wisconsin?
There's really no favorite. I had to go back to another unique thing. The unisigns that they have.
Yeah.
Nowadays, the highways, sign salads, if you call them that, are all on one big sign.
Yeah.
You've seen that.
Of course.
But I don't have a really big favorite place. I mean, yeah, I can't think of one. I mean, Milwaukee's a nice place to drive in.
Yeah.
I sure would like to get out at Door County again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really nice area to be in, and taking that road all the way up to where the ferry crosses to the island, and you almost think like they're checking for drunk drivers the way it goes around if you're taking that.
Really?
I have a picture of it in my Flickr account where it intentionally weaves back and forth.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're checking against drunk driving or telling people to slow down. Probably the latter.
Well, yeah, they can. They have all sorts of traffic calming measures nowadays, where it looks like they've made a mess of it, but in reality, that was their intent, was to do it that way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Speed humps or roundabouts.
Yeah.
Or even using a four-way stop, for example.
Right. Yeah.
But a lot of times, I feel like some of the places I want to go to in Wisconsin are out of Wisconsin.
Well, you live what, like 20 minutes from Iowa,
Yeah,
roughly? So,
Iowa and Illinois.
okay, yeah. Well, yeah, because you're right in far southwest Wisconsin, right?
Yes.
Um, if you could get in a car and just go anywhere you wanted to right now, where would you go?
Where did I not?
Assuming you were healthy and that there wasn't a pandemic going on.
Yeah. Well, number one would be probably Florida or Arizona, or 1A and 1B.
Mm.
Um, the two definitely would be anywhere in the West Coast. Certainly would want to get back to California again someday. And definitely haven't minded Oregon or Washington, at least the rural areas.
Mm.
I didn't really. I don't think Portland and Seattle were quite interesting as cities, to say the least. It's like I walk along the Alaskan Way, and it's like you look around, and it's like this place is a mess. But then again, the viaduct was still being torn down at the time.
Okay.
But I mean, in general, I kind of thought of Seattle as a cross between nice and this kind of scares me. But then again, I thought of the same thing with LA way back when I first went there. And if I had to choose between Seattle, San Francisco, Portland, or LA, I'll choose San Francisco.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
But I ended up back in LA again, despite not wanting to go back there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was quite weird. I mean, you always think of LA as kind of like crime land. And if you go through the wrong neighborhood, you're definitely going to be taking risks.
Well, it does have sort of a bad reputation, right? And
Yes.
I don't know how fair that is. Like, I'm sure that parts of it are true, but you know how things are exaggerated and stuff like that. So I don't really know how true it is. Like, I had heard before I was in San Francisco a couple winters ago that all it is full of people living on the streets and living in tents. And then I was in downtown San Francisco. I didn't see anything like that. So
Oh.
I'd like people are gonna portray things the way that they want, and
And they're definitely going to stay out of tourists, keep people out of the touristy areas that are homeless and like that. I mean, that's the first thing. I mean, but if the person was going to be flocking out of a touristy area, they're bound to run into something like that. And some of the transit lines in LA, there's one that goes from LA downtown to Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Takes you past Skid Row, past Watts, and past Compton.
Yeah. Well, those are the
three worst areas of California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard. Yeah.
Yes,
so
Compton.
Yes, come and get your tour of Southern California.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that I mean, LA's metro is, if you're going to stick to a metro train to take, what they call now what they call the red line. I don't know what they call letter-wise, but it used to be the red line when I wrote it, and that was one of the ones that I felt was more safer. I took the blue line that went down. I took that very line that went through the three worst areas.
Yeah.
I did take the gold line, but that's about it. And that was, otherwise I just basically used the car. They do have lines that go across. I mean, that Ferguson. Forgive me if I mutilate the guy's name, but that big interchange has the green line on it. 105.
Oh, yeah, I forget whose name is on that, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And the Expo Line goes from downtown over to Santa Monica. And that's a newer one that was installed like at 15.
Oh, is it that new? Okay.
Yes. It was actually under construction when I was out there.
Oh. Okay.
And they're doing continuous expansion now. I mean, I was out there for the first time in '97. There was no transit at all. There was just buses.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's
They came very late to the transit party.
Yeah, they did.
There.
They certainly did.
Yeah. You've been obviously before the pandemic. You were very active in the road meet scene. You always hosted events, whether it be in Wisconsin or in the Midwest or in that general area. You've been very active in attending meets in the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and other places as well. Tell us some of your favorite meets that you've attended over the years and some of your favorite memories as far as that goes.
Well, I don't know if there's any better place to start than New York City.
Is this the one in 2014?
Correct.
See, I'm glad you brought that up because that was actually the first one I ever attended. So that's why you're going to say it was your favorite, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
Maybe part of it. It's definitely part of it. But,
Part of it?
I mean,
all right.
It's actually would have been the first time. It's technically the first time I've gotten out of the car in New York City. Because it was part of a greater trip for 2 weeks, and basically spent 3 days on foot using the subway, mostly in Manhattan, but there was a little bit of Brooklyn as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously using a Sunday morning to try and get as many freeways as I can, as well as Manhattan streets. I did drive Park Avenue.
Okay.
Part of it in both directions, especially around Grand Central.
Yeah, that's an interesting area there with the viaduct and the tunnel.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't go through the tunnel, unfortunately.
Okay.
I think there is a lot of things in front of it that kind of made me worry. You know, like construction vehicles.
Oh, all right. Well, they have it. They like to close it for whatever reason, just to whether they're doing work on it or what. But it seems like they've been working on that thing for 20 years.
But my drive-in, it kind of made that one memorable because it was my last drive. My last interstate that I took before going there basically was 78. Mm-hmm. So I took 78 from Harrisburg right through the Holland Tunnel, all in one swoop.
That's quite a regal entrance to the city. Yes.
Yes, but still.
Yeah.
I mean, it still gives you a view from the Turnpike extension.
Well,
but,
that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's like you get stopped at stoplights in Jersey City a couple times, and it's like, yeah, I get dumped at the Holland Tunnel, just take the drive around Manhattan on the West Side Highway and the FDR Drive and Harlem River. I got out into George Washington and went up the Palisades, all the way to Bear Mountain.
Oh, all right.
I did take over that bridge, or drive over that bridge, you're saying, not take over. But I thought that was a memorable thing.
That is a nice drive. Yeah.
Yep. It is really. It was a good one. I mean, I took the Turnpike in partial beforehand. The only part of the Turnpike that I didn't have before that trip was south of the Turnpike extension area.
Mm-hmm.
And never took the Parkway at all. And then, as I came back out, I took the Parkway down, and that's where I got off from my hotel. So, it was quite an interesting thing. And I went out later on one night and took the Lincoln Tunnel and kind of dumped me right south of Times Square. I was like going through, and I was like, yeah, this is 42nd Street. This is a little familiar. I looked in, yes, this is Times Square.
Huh.
And I crossed it all the way and then took I can't remember if I took the 39th Street Bridge over during the night. But I only took the Manhattan and the Williamsburg at night, though.
Okay. Well, Manhattan's a nice bridge. That's the one that I like a lot.
Yeah, but I definitely crossed all the bridges, went under all the tunnels, that's including Thog's Neck, Whitestone, GWB, you name it, and even the two on the west side of Staten Island.
Did you have to sell your house to pay for the tolls that you accrued over that trip, or were you able to just skate
Oh, I
by?
didn't have a. I no, I managed to keep the house.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's a good
I
sign.
budgeted for this one.
Okay.
I budgeted for this
All
one.
right,
I
because
mean, it
it's
was like I knew that I was going to be paying arms and legs for these bridges. I
right.
just never went westbound on the Verrazano. So
Yeah, well, you caught it, believe it or not, at a good time because whatever the toll was in 2014, it's a hell of a lot higher even today.
yes, I
So
heard.
yeah,
And with them taking it all electronic, are they going to start moving it both ways now?
so that's what I'm hearing because the recent news was that the Verrazano is now two way, and that went live in early December, and
Yeesh.
so. Well, all the East River bridges and tunnels are already two-way, but the Hudson
Yep.
River crossings were just one-way, inbound or
Mhm.
eastbound into New York. Um, so there's some thought, I don't know how much credibility there is to this, but that if they see that the Verrazano two-way is working well, that it might just trigger everybody else to go back to two-way, which is, believe it or not, the way that it originally was many years ago. But it may spark a movement to bring back two-way tolling at every bridge and tunnel.
Hmm.
So we'll have to see how that works. I mean, part of the reason for reinstalling two-way tolling on the Verrazano was to discourage certain traffic patterns through the city in certain directions
Right.
and try to make it more equitable. But we'll see. We'll see what
Yeah.
comes of that and how that ends up working out. But it is an interesting experiment that they're trying because the Verrazano was two-way for a number of years up until I believe the 80s, and then they got rid of the booths on the Brooklyn bound side, and then when they built the gantries, they originally just put them up on the one side. But
Right.
so we'll have to see. We'll have to see how traffic adjusts to that and if it really impacts traffic patterns across the city in general.
Mm-hmm.
But New
I
York is
mean, right now the Port Authority bridges are only one way right now. And did they ever go electronic during the pandemic?
they did for a period of time.
I thought they would have gone back.
Yeah, but they did go back. Yeah,
Mm.
New Jersey toll roads went back to cash. Although, as I mentioned that, but all of those agencies are looking into cashless arrangements.
You
As
think
far
the
as
pandemic was one of those things that kind of gave it a kickstart?
yeah, I don't know if they had Port Authority. I think had it already planned it out that they were going to do it, but it's still a couple of years away. But I think they already had the idea in their head that they were going to do it.
Turnpike and Parkway.
Turnpike and Parkway are a bit further down the line, so I wouldn't. I'm not sure. I mean, the pandemic definitely was a dry run for everybody, just to kind of experiment. Because as I understand it, the Turnpike Authority already had all the cameras to do cashless at all the
Right,
booths.
because you send both Easy Pass and cash through all the lanes.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have some reserved for Easy Pass, but
Right.
you don't have the gates in front of them to stop people like Indiana does.
Like you do at the New York State Bridge Authority.
Yeah.
And my single least favorite toll booth in America is the toll booth at the Newburgh Beacon Bridge, and about 5 miles from where I'm sitting right now. It's got the gates, so you can't go through it more than a few miles an hour. And
Yeah.
fortunately, they're getting rid of it with the project that they just started on. But
Good.
yeah, I absolutely hate that toll booth. It's my least favorite by far of any other one. But
Did you go on the Indiana Toll Road when you were out in Chicago area?
I have clinched the Indiana Toll Road.
Well, have you in the portion probably you didn't have an iPass with you, right? Or an Easy Pass with you, right?
What did I do for that? When I drove the toll road, I had a rental car that had a toll tag in it.
Okay. The Easy Pass lanes had gates on them. Easy Pass only lanes on the one by the Klein Avenue.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I was up there the weekend after Christmas this year. there was at least 4 cars that went through those gates without easy passes, or probably just bought their easy passes from Illinois, and they haven't trickled down to all the other agencies yet, and they get stuck there.
Oh, okay.
Because of the gates.
Because it doesn't read the tag, and then it doesn't open the gate.
Right. So it's like they got all these signs: "Do not back up."
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't fix stupid.
Yeah. Well, you're right. Well, the same dumb crap happens at Newburgh also.
Yeah.
So I think it's a similar deal. Yeah.
That's the mistake that they make is, and I know they're trying to catch everybody, but they bring up a dangerous situation.
Well, yeah, it's antiquated to say the least, right?
Yes.
I mean, you would think that they would have done away with that many years ago, but anyway. We're talking with Scott Onson of the AARoads Forum and the general road enthusiast community. We've been talking about the AARoads Forum, his involvement in it, and also some of his personal and professional interests related to roads and computer software and all sorts of other good stuff like that. If you have a question for Scott that you'd like to ask, please feel free to leave it in the live chat, and assuming it's appropriate and is answerable, that we'll do the best we can to answer it for you. You mentioned New York City. We obviously spent a few minutes going through your memories of the New York City meet in 2014, but would you say that that's the favorite meet that you've had, or the favorite meet that you've been to that you didn't host? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a close second out west. That was one where we did LA and just drove up the former US 99 right away. And that was right from downtown all the way up to north of the San Fernando Valley in Santa Clarita. That was in 2013.
How long of a journey is that? I'm not too familiar with that area.
That's close to. See, you're not on the freeways. You're on the back roads, right? You're on the local streets now.
Okay, yeah.
And this is like original 99 before they put them on the freeways and then eventually replaced it with the interstates.
Yeah.
And it goes up and like through on basically what it goes up through on San Fernando Road from where it turns off of the Aurora Circle. Used to be Figueroa. And that particular line, that particular road just basically takes you through the north side of LA, Burbank, the valley, of course, the various neighborhoods of the San Fernando Valley. San Fernando, the city of, which is basically surrounded, Silmar, and then up to Santa Clarita.
Yeah.
And it kind of disappears into I-5 after that.
Right, so people may not know this, but I-5, basically overtook what was US 99, right? And
for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, so I-99 came around, or I-99, US 99 was the original iteration, and then eventually US 99 was replaced with I-5, and now it basically no longer exists. Now the old alignments of 99 have the historic trailblazers on them and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's reasonably signed enough.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you were retracing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they got them on the best right-of-way they could find because there are many places where the original right-of-way is either buried or not in use, basically, in general. I mean, the Ridge Road, for example, the Ridge Route, for example. I can't remember if that was part of 99 or not, but it's still out there, but it's decaying rapidly. And that's going over the mountain, over the mountains between the San Fernando and the San Juan Key valleys.
That's not the Ridge Route, is it? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That was the original road.
Yeah, but there were a few different alignments there, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I-5 kind of crosses it a few times too.
Yeah.
There's one picture that I've seen on the Facebook where there is a big looping road that goes out from the interstate and around a mountain. And turns out that was the ridge route itself. Can't access it really without stopping on the freeway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I really want to stop on that busy road.
Well, why just do what some other road geeks do? They just stop in the right lane to take pictures. So
Yeah.
You know.
It ain't that obvious unless you see it from elsewhere.
Yeah, you could do that, yeah.
Use your drone.
Well, you know what? That is a recent addition to my camera arsenal, so that wouldn't be impossible, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Might have to get out to the West Coast with that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the thing is, like, when I went to San Francisco and I went to Hawaii and I was in San Diego this past winter.
Those areas you probably couldn't use the drone in?
Well, you know, I was thinking about it, and, you know, Hawaii, like Oahu in general, has a lot of no-fly zones because of military installations and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Oahu in particular, yeah.
Yeah, downtown Honolulu is tricky. Like there's airspace around HNL that's right. Well, because you may know that downtown Honolulu is right next to the airport, so
right.
There's a lot of flight restrictions in general. So I probably wouldn't have been able to use it that much in Hawaii anyway, unless I went to like the North Shore and like flew around the beaches and stuff like that.
Perhaps one to the other islands.
Well, I do have to get back to the other islands at some point because Oahu was the only island I ever made it to. But I did clinch the state highway system in Oahu, which, you know, I know there aren't many people who can say that. So that is something that I pat myself on the back for. But yeah, I've heard great things about the other islands as well. So hopefully I can make it out there again at some point to do those. But as far as the drone is concerned, you think about San Francisco and you think about San Diego, and you know those are great places to, you know, photograph and you know, do aerial stuff around, and you know, it's just, you know, the timing just didn't work out. But hopefully at some point in the future, I'll be back out in California at some point. Mm-hmm. And then I'll really wow you people with what I can do with the camera. So you've been warned.
Yep. I know SFO and OAK are close enough, but not as close as what San Jose is to their airport, obviously.
Oh, you mean like the downtown of San Jose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gallagher put it best in one of his shows when he hosted from San Jose. The only city dumb enough to put its airport in the middle of downtown where nobody cares.
Yeah, it's like the only, like when you think about a downtown, you think about like having some sort of center square with green space. Well, San Jose just decided to make their green space downtown their airport.
Yeah.
Like I just that's amazing to me that they did that. And San Jose is a city of 1 million people. A lot of people don't realize that, but San Jose is that big.
It is one of the top 10 in the U.S.
I think it is. It's one of the. I think there are 10 that have over 1 million people, and San Jose is in there. So yeah, it's a pretty darn big city, and it's got basically no, you know, downtown skyscrapers to speak of, because you walk outside your office and you're on the tarmac for San Jose Mineta Airport. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Just out of curiosity, the Titans win yet?
The Titans have a 38-35 lead with about 90 seconds left. Yeah, stuff.
Who's got the ball?
Houston just got the ball.
Oh, so it's still a game.
So it's very much a game, yeah. So they're gonna sweat this one out.
But anyway, this is not about the game.
No, it's not. But you know, Derrick Henry did go over 2,000 yards today.
That's good.
Season. So yeah, he had himself a season.
But the number of people he knocked over.
Well, I think he stiff-armed about 1,000 people along the way. But yeah. So Green Bay won. They're the 1 seed, so they can coast into the bye week next week. But yeah. But any road meets that you would like to host going forward? I know that obviously COVID kind of zapped things for a lot of people. Like a lot of us had stuff on the back burner that, we were kind of thinking about doing, but, we kind of had to postpone them. But what's kind of in your pipeline in the short-term future?
Kind of be spontaneous on some of these things. I'd like to do something in Rochester, Minnesota, but that would be sort of competition with a native of Minnesota that wants to be out of his state all the time, Patrick. And at the same time, there's a couple places in Iowa that interest me. And I'd like to do kind of like a Great River Road tour.
Oh, that would be nice. Point. Yeah.
And it's like, especially in Iowa, because Iowa has tended to put the Great River Road on roads that aren't highways. Aren't state highways all the time.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And in Wisconsin, they've routed the scenic route along mostly state and U.S. routes, but there are times when it's on county highways.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I've seen, it's more been on the county highway right of way as far as Iowa and how they've been doing it. They're trying to get closer to the river.
Okay, so, but like historically there's always been some sort of roadway that's paralleled the river, right?
Right.
That's basically my understanding of it.
And yeah, right from the beginning up north and the Twins.
Yeah.
North of the Twins and all the way down to the end at New Orleans.
Yeah.
And down to Delta.
Down the Delta, down to Venice, yeah. I've driven the southernmost stretch of the Great River Road down to Venice at what they call the end of the world. That's the nickname of the town they have down there because it's
nice.
You can't
it feels like it, doesn't it?
Well, it actually does, and that's how it gets its name. That's the end of the line. Like you can't go any further on the Mississippi at that point. But some states do a better job of signing it than others. Like I know in Illinois, they basically have their own trailblazer that they use.
Oh, that's Wisconsin.
Yeah, well, I guess it's the same one, right?
Right. Iowa puts it in one of their scenic route blades posts. And unless you look carefully, you won't notice it. I mean, but it does have the Great River Road symbol in it.
Yeah.
Missouri isn't that bad. Arkansas, I haven't seen enough of it to see and notice much.
Mm-hmm.
I basically was trying to get as much as 61 that I got before I got to I-40.
Mm-hmm.
And one side note, an interesting thing about Arkansas is it eats U.S. highways even though they're still there, they don't sign them all the time.
Really?
Yeah. It's like they have at the road that goes off, I think Arkansas 77 that goes off 555, where it joins with 55.
Oh, right.
The 65 goes north. They don't have 61 going north. They don't have a trailblazer for it going south.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. They did that. The story is they do that with all their U.S. routes.
Is that a thing that they do? Like that's not just a goof, that's like an actual thing?
That's an actual thing.
Wow.
You have to figure it out for yourself.
Well, some of us are smart enough to figure it out on our own, I guess.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, you figure you got a 50-50 shot of getting it right.
You go that way or you go that way.
Yeah, you only got two choices, so.
Right. Go around the bend and you crash.
Yeah. But I would love to do more of the Great River Road myself. I know that I've done pieces of it in like the St. Louis area. Obviously, I did the southern end of it in Louisiana, but there's a lot more of it that I'd like to get to at some point.
Right. But I mean, the meets that I've done before mostly were all except one were all in Wisconsin. You could count two if we did the one that I did this year because I had La Crosse and Winona.
Mm-hmm.
But last year I did Milwaukee. Before then I did Madison, Dubuque, and Wausau. Wausau was kind of like the one that got me kicked off because they just upgraded their freeway. They had a Breezewood, the west the northern junction of 2951. and they had basically a trumpet at the other end. So they rebuilt them into T interchanges that basically fly over, and upgraded the 51 right away to three lanes each way. It was basically growing. It was outgrowing itself in 2000. So it was like, okay, it's time to expand. And they did that. Pretty much get rid of any middle lanes in 29 that they had. They had a middle lane in portion of it. They just put a Jersey barrier in there.
Oh, okay.
And pretty much everything is 65 up there. Unfortunately, they could make it 70, but they didn't want to.
Yeah, so like, I'm from New York, so that like the concept of a 65 mile an hour non-freeway is completely foreign to me. But is that a consistently signed thing out that way?
4 lanes for the most part. You have a set of what they call freeways and expressways. So expressways. So you got, and I may miss some on this one, but the interstates, obviously, 43, 39, 94, and 90. All of them pretty much are 70 outside the cities. If they're as are freeways. There are other ones that are freeways like 29 or 29, 53 is partly freeway, 10 is partly freeway. Those are 70 if the state chooses. Otherwise, they're 65, even if they have crossroads.
Yeah.
151 southwest of Madison and northeast, where it's 4 lane. 10. 51 north of Wausau, where 39 ends. 29 has 65. 23, cutting from Plymouth to Fond du Lac, has it. 26, which is a kind of an outlier there, where it goes up from Janesville to close to Fond du Lac. That's a 65. So there's a lot of them out there. And then there's some 4 lanes that are short enough that the state doesn't even bother to put a 65 on it.
Oh, okay. Well.
Yeah, and it's like, this thing could use a 65, but they won't do it.
They just won't do it because it's just not long enough or whatever.
Not long enough, or probably doesn't meet their standards, whatever.
What's one thing that you would like to see Wisconsin do as far as whether it's signage or, roadway, maybe not roadway design, but like the way that things are set up, or like signaling or stuff like that? Like what's one thing in Wisconsin that you'd like them to be better at, for lack of a better term?
Speed limit design.
Yeah.
That's definitely my number one pet peeve about any of the states that surround me. Iowa could definitely have 60 or 65 in the 2 lanes. Illinois, outside the hilly areas, can have it. Wisconsin is kind of a horse apiece because you got a lot of tight spaces with trees. Those should stay 55, but anything that's in an open area, that like most of the northwestern part that's not trees. I mean, you could definitely make that 60. Minnesota smartened up and made most of their 2 lanes 60. But I mean, Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa definitely can make theirs 2 lanes 60 or 65. No brainer. Wisconsin, they'd have to pick and choose based on what openness and population they have. But unfortunately, the way they got their law set up is statutory limit 55. Unless otherwise signed. They got four levels. Rural's 55. Outer urban is 35.
Yeah.
Downtown residential is 25. School zones are 15, and alleys at 5th is 10.
Huh.
So it's like they really do.
You memorized that breakdown for me. That's good.
Yeah. And it's like the state speed limit thing in New York, for example.
Yeah. Well, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, New York is unique in that they explicitly write the word state. Or area or village or whatever, but not many states do that anymore, if any. New York may be the only one that does that, but
Well, it could be like Oregon and just leave limit out.
Well, that's wait, which state does that? Oregon?
Oregon, yeah, they just put speed. Oh,
I guess I knew that, but I guess I forgot about that. But oh, hello, cat. Do we want to ask the cat a question, or what do we got here? Tell us about your cat, real quick, while he's here.
Ah, yeah, she actually.
I apologize. I hope your cat is not too woke and that she's not offended that I misidentified her gender. But
no,
yeah.
she just goes about her business.
All right,
just like a cat. She's just like a cat. She goes about her business. And Guinevere is the name. Had her since 2000, and so that late 2000, April 2000, and she probably is about 11 now. I have to check the records and make sure.
You know what? I'm gonna have you call a timeout on telling us about your cat because they switched over to bonus coverage on CBS. It's Titans Texans. It's 38-38 with 4 seconds left. Titans are lining up for a 35-yard field goal. This would, I guess, be the last play of the game. 37 yards officially, they're going to call it. This to win the game and give the Titans the AFC South Division title. And Houston called a timeout. So
of course, I'm freezing them.
Yeah, they're going to ice them. So anyway, this game has been back and forth, as I said, and
I was surprised the Texans actually gave them a game.
Well, you know what? The last Titans-Texans game went to overtime, and it was like, I think it was a similar score. It was like 38-38 at the end of regulation in that game. So these teams know how to score on each other, that's for sure. But it's coming down to a practice squad kicker because Steven Gostkowski, their regular kicker, is out with COVID. So
no surprise there.
It's always something, right? But, no, this will be interesting. If he makes this will be the Titans' first division championship in 12 years. If he misses it, we have overtime. And snap, placement down, kick on the way. It hit the upright, and it's good! He got... Oh, my God. It bounced off the right upright and went through. It got the perfect bounce. The Titans win 41-38, and they are the 2020 AFC South Division champions. Yes! Yes! You know what? This calls for a drink. You got a drink in front of you?
I got not that type of drink.
Oh, well, really? You don't have anything special? Here, I got... You know who gave me this thing? This was Steve, like 2 years ago, probably.
Holy cow! And you're still working on it?
I'm still working on it. Yeah. Yeah. All right, to the Titans, 2020 division champ.
Now he's all set.
Oh God, that tastes horrible. You know what? It tastes a little sweeter because the Titans are division champs for the first time since 2008. But, all right, I'm going to try to compose myself here. Let's get back to roads.
You were on the cat.
We were talking about cat. I'm sorry. Yes, we were talking about cat. So anyway, as you were saying about the cat, go ahead.
Yeah. So, when I moved out, when I got back onto the job, it was couple years after I started on the job, I moved into an apartment, and I had one cat before that I kind of picked up off my mom because that cat was more attached to me than she was to my mom, and unfortunately, about a year in, I had to put her down, and then I brought this one in to the fold. As you can see, she's not afraid to be a people person. And
which I kind of feel is atypical for kitty cats.
Yeah. She's a dog in a cat's body.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay.
And she likes to do the "I'll beat you to this room" type of thing, for sure. And she'll do it by going underneath my legs and that has resulted in a couple oopsies stepping on her.
Oh, well, that happens anyway.
Yeah, I mean, she survived. She had to hide for a little bit once in a while, but she survived. But otherwise, she definitely has made me want to have to close the door a couple times while I'm working.
Okay.
Because she has no concept of 8 to 5.
Uh-huh.
She has a concept of me first, never mind you.
Yeah, well, isn't that kind of typical anyway? But
Of any pet?
well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am the center of attention. F you. I am the only thing that matters in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MFFY.
Yeah. So how old is she again?
Almost 11.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So she's been through that.
She went through COVID with you, and now she's going through the Packers push for Super Bowl 55 with you, and
yeah, it's going to be interesting this year for sure. Don't have a really good team other than the Chiefs that I think that might be a good contender in that one, especially in the NFC. Maybe the Seahawks or the Saints, but both of those teams have had their problems, and I would not discount the Buccaneers.
You think the Bucs can make a run?
I think the Bucs might make a run on this one. I mean, they had a little growing up to do.
Yeah.
But given that they have Tom Brady,
he's been there before.
He has, and
Once
he's
or
been
twice.
the one that carried.
Yeah.
I noticed the Patriots went south. And in fact, the Patriots and Mr. Newton.
Well, I have a different take on that, because what often doesn't get talked about is that the Patriots had the highest number of COVID opt-outs of any other team, and they lost a lot of good teams. They lost a lot of good players off of their defense.
Their top receiver too.
I think so. Yeah. So
Julian Edelman.
Edelman, yeah.
I think
he get hurt? I don't remember what his deal was, but either he got injured or he opted out. But yeah. So I kind of think you got to throw this year away if you're trying to judge the Patriots. But
he didn't have that great a team this year, and
I
think I call Belichick now.
Well, where you can really get on Belichick is his drafting, because he is the coach / GM up there, and his drafts the last few years have been awful, and that's part of the reason why Brady left in the first place. He's like, dude, really? You're giving me this every year?
Give me a team.
Yeah, give me wide receivers I can throw the ball to. And,
well, you sure it wasn't because he just wanted to let his dog do the drafting?
Well, I don't know what that was all about.
That was just coincidence.
Although I do appreciate the effort at some humor. That's one. Belichick was the one guy I was not expecting anything out of in that regard.
Yes.
So that was a memorable part of the draft. Obviously, I think we've talked about this before, but whatever the hell was going on in Mike Vrabel's living room was very memorable. I'm sure there's going to be a party in his living room again tonight, but whatever the heck was going on when the Titans were on the clock, that was interesting. But yeah, I think we're going to start to wrap this up if everybody in the live chat is content and no one has any questions. But we're kind of turning this into an NFL wildcard weekend preview show. Right?
Hey, why not?
Why not? Hey,
Nickelodeon though.
I'm on a bloody high. You know what? I'll be right back. Hang on a second. I got to put this on. You ready?
Yeah.
I got this sitting on my couch. I figured I had to get another jersey for Christmas. So, this is the first time anyone's going to see me wearing this thing. You ready? It is not Mr. 22. It's going to be somebody else. Here, you ready? Look at this.
QB.
17, baby.
Yeah.
That's my quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But I might wear this to work tomorrow. I might. Hey, this is my one chance in a dozen years to throw a party, so I
That's
might.
probably going to be under your orange vest, right?
I will wear this over the orange vest.
I was going to say it does stand out. It's a little fluorescent.
The powder blue does stand out, so it probably would work.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we were talking about the Bucks and the NFC, and then look, you said it. I think it's Kansas City versus the field in the AFC. But again, like we talked about with the home field situation and
Black crowds.
yeah, I just think it's a total crapshoot and free for all 2 through 7.
Most of the sports playoffs have been that way this way.
Yeah, I just, the thing that I worry about above anything else is that we get some sort of COVID outbreak in the next couple of weeks that really, screws with the playoffs and the competitive fairness and all that stuff. Because, you talk about, competition and, the integrity of the game and stuff like that. Well, we've seen these teams have these big outbreaks. Like the Titans had a 20-plus player outbreak, and they never really were found to have done anything that egregious. So it can happen to anybody, and I just really worry that one of these teams, and if I was a Packers fan, I would be scared to death of this, that there's going to be some sort of big outbreak. Like, what happens if Devontae Adams tests positive and the wide receiver group has to be quarantined?
You saw what happened to Denver.
Denver's a case in point too. Yeah,
they had to play a wide receiver at their quarterback position.
Yeah,
because all the quarterbacks are taken out.
Right. So I'm really scared of something like that happening in the playoffs, and
it's quite a possibility.
And I can guarantee you that if it happens, fans across the league are going to go absolutely nuts. Because the NFL had every opportunity to try to put this thing in a bubble to some degree, but they just want to try to go with what they got, and I'm rooting for it to work out. But if it doesn't, they're gonna have a hot mess on their hands.
Yes. I mean, the reason why Browns struggled in the last couple of weeks, for example, was COVID.
Well, yeah, I think the Browns. What was the Browns' deal? Like all the wide receivers were out.
Yeah. Although they had to play with practice squads, and then this week the backs, not the running backs, but the defensive backs, I think, were affected.
Yeah.
So
like, they got the bug going around their facility right now. So.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And look, if you put the Bills against the Browns. They just showed it right now. No, the Bills would get the Colts because the Colts won today. But the Steelers are going to get the Browns this weekend, which is interesting because that's who they just played.
Yeah, no kidding.
They get to play them.
But they're going to be playing Big Ben again, though.
Right, they played Mason Rudolph today, yeah. But the interesting thing is that, the Steelers haven't looked all that great, but then again, the Browns have this issue with COVID. So how does that work? COVID is obviously the wild card in all of this. So you just gotta, if you're a fan of one of these teams, you gotta hold your breath that, if I'm a Titans fan and I see my kicker bang a field goal off the upright, I gotta hope that Gostkowski can be available next week. Because we all know how special teams comes into play in big games. Ask a Titans fan. I'm familiar with special teams in big games.
Yeah.
So,
We've had a couple of players test positive on the Packers earlier in the year.
Yeah, but you didn't have the big outbreak that...
No.
That some of these... Like, Baltimore had a big outbreak, and the Titans had one. Yeah.
Mm.
But you guys... It was just an isolated thing in each case, right?
Well, the thing about Baltimore, if they had a big outbreak, they had to put a quarterback in.
Right.
Instead of a running back.
Well, that's the interesting thing about Lamar Jackson is that he's a phenomenal talent. Don't get me wrong. He can do stuff that no other quarterback has ever been able to do, maybe since Randall Cunningham or Michael Vick. But he is a completely different player when he has to throw the ball from the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And the Titans are going to get another shot at Baltimore this next weekend, and they have the formula to beat them, as we've seen. So that's going to be interesting to see round 3, basically, because they played them earlier this year, and of course they knocked them out in the year before in the playoffs. What's interesting about the Titans-Ravens rivalry? I'll tell you really quick, because that rivalry is one of the sneaky good rivalries in the NFL that you don't hear a lot about. But every time they play each other, there's either high stakes involved or it gets really chippy between the two teams. And I think that really originates from like the Ray Lewis versus Eddie George feud that was going on like 20 years ago. Those teams have played in the playoffs 4 times since 2000. The road team has won every one of them?
I did not know that.
And guess who's the home team next week? It's going to be the Titans. See that?
That doesn't sound too good for you guys odds-wise.
We should have lost today. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you were already in the playoffs before you started playing.
We were. We knew we were in the playoffs before kickoff, yeah.
It was either going to be the wild card or the division.
Well, yeah, it was either going to be host Baltimore or go to Orchard Park.
Yep.
And that would have been interesting because I would have had to put up with Josh all week. I can handle Doug. Doug's not bad, but
but Josh, no.
I would have had to come up with some sort of Gribble Nation friendly wager because I'm a recent addition to the Gribble Nation blogger family, and Doug's obviously one of the anchor tenants of that fine organization. But we would have had to come up with some sort of wager between the two of us. But fortunately, it doesn't look like we'll have to worry about that this time around.
Nope.
I may have to come up with a friendly wager with CPZ or Laura, but, we can figure that out.
Well, they're not playing the Allegheny County, Pennsylvania football team, so yet.
No, they're not. So the bracket is set up that the winner of Titans-Ravens goes to Kansas City.
Yeah, I don't think you'll make it past that one.
I don't think we're going to get to play Buffalo because the only way we get to play them would be AFC Championship.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's going to happen.
And Buffalo's going to beat the Taro, who plays them anyway.
Well, you would think, right? I mean, they hung 50-something on Miami today, and Miami had something
with their
to play
scrubs.
For. Well, yeah, and Miami had everything to play for. So
yes.
Yeah. But
and Fitzpatrick was out with COVID too.
I didn't know that he was.
Yeah, I believe he was.
So they played Tua the whole game.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Boy, is that pick starting to look bad? The Tua pick. Like if Fitzpatrick can routinely come in and outplay you, like that's kind of a warning sign.
Yeah, it was a warning sign. Don't take Fitzpatrick. Don't play Tua yet.
Yeah.
They put all their chips on him, and look what happened.
Yeah, well, yeah, I still think that they kind of overachieved from where they thought they would be, and they kind of got a little greedy and were like, hey, maybe we can make a run at the playoffs here. But they won 10 games, so they didn't have a bad year. But it'll be interesting to see what Miami does at this point because they're kind of at a weird crossroads where they're not a good team, but they're not a bad team either, and they've got a decision to make at quarterback in the offseason.
Yes.
So, and they can't resurrect the prime of Dan Marino's career either. So,
no.
Yeah. But
he's a little old for that.
He is. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been a pleasure having you talk about the AARoads Forum and your road enthusiast adventures over the years and your little kitty cat there and the NFL playoffs. It's been a lot of fun over the last 2 hours. It's been a roller coaster ride for sure for yours truly, checking in on the scoreboard and all of that. But I'm glad that you were able to keep me company and keep me sane through all of that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. We really wanted to have somebody on to talk about the forum, as we're trying to tell the story of the hobby. So we're glad that we were able to grab you and have you come on for a couple hours. So this was a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
And don't get hit by Carl Rogers.
Well, I'm going to do my best. I won't promise you any success on that front, but I will definitely try. But I think on that strong note, we're going to sign off from all of us here at Roadway Wiz. Thank you all for watching. We hope to see you right back here again next weekend for our next round of live programming. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.